Before Christopher Columbus, long before the Vikings, one civilization dared to sail beyond the edge of any known map, and that's the purple merchants, right? They navigated by a single star. That was a secret that they figured, and it made them masters of the sea. So let's discover the business of Phoenician trade ships, the adventures that took them beyond any map, but it helps give birth to Western civilization. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where timeless stories reveal truth and wisdom for your journey, and this journey is on the sea with the Phoenicians, the purple people, the unseen architects of the ancient world. They connected everybody across the Mediterranean Sea. So I want to make you an ancient trade expert, which means Mediterranean. It means purple fabric. So let's learn to understand how they could do it without the typical farmland empire. It's a commercial empire, and it truly shapes history. If you were there with the Phoenicians, kind of hemmed in by the mountains with these tall, beautiful trees and a bunch of little shellfish, what would you do? Well, you're going to learn some of these great inventions and successes, because this is lesson number 16 in your ancient history course. So we're stepping into the story of the Phoenicians and Mediterranean trade. Ask some big questions and see how it shaped history. And it still shapes your journey today. So first, let's discover the Phoenicians, their unique geography and placement, and their destiny. Second, let's see, how did they become masters of the waves? What was their pioneering naval technology? Third, how did they become indispensable? Everybody wanted to be global merchant friends with the Phoenicians. How'd they do it? And finally, it's a bonus check-in on their enduring legacy, something that gave a gift, helping to change the entire world, confronting some significant issues as they found a way to connect with everybody. So by the end of this episode, you'll see the connections. You'll be on the next level as a classical scholar on your classical journey. I'm Mr. Hull. This is Ancient History. One of my favorite back-to-school days, we get out this box because it's time for Mediterranean trade. It's all because of the Phoenicians, all because of their geography. You know love stories. Here's one. Melkart, the god, one of the Phoenician gods. Melkart's walking along the beach with his lovely sea nymph Tyros and their puppy, the puppy dog. And they're having a lovely walk together as boyfriend and girlfriend, and then their dog is playing in the beach and digging his nose into some of the little alcoves on the shore, where he started seeing these murex, sea snails, little shellfish, the murex. He's playing with them with his nose. He starts to bite on them like they're a dog toy. You know, he's squeezing them. He's getting his mouth kind of involved, and his mouth is turning purple. Why is his mouth turning purple? Well, when Tyros, the sea nymph, sees this purple color is unlike anything else. It still is. It's still unlike anything else, except for we make synthetic dyes. But she demanded to her boyfriend, Melkart, he's a god, he's like Hercules, right? I demand that you give me a gown of this color purple, or I will not marry you. So, yeah, touching love story. So, yeah, wouldn't you love the geography where you could enjoy the seashore with your puppy, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and the murex, the shellfish? This is the purple industry, and they would sit on the seashore squeezing shellfish. It stunk the place up quite a bit, and they could barely make any dye, so it's very expensive. And so in this bucket, in this bin, we have all the different commodities. So purple dye is one of the commodities. Dried fish is one of the commodities. You know, what even is a commodity? You know, it's a trade simulation. Commodities are the things you're trading, the staples, the foodstuffs, the values. It's the business, the commercial, the commodity. And if you needed dry fish, that is something that you could produce here on the coast of Canaan and the Phoenician city-states. Also olive oil, Lebanese olive oil today, Phoenician Phoenicia is now called Lebanon. In the Canaan area, it's very close to Israel. Also makes olive oil and wine. You could do grapes because that's all part of the geography, the climate. It has water to the west. Anytime you have water to the west, you're good at these types of crops. And also, they had some technology advancing in glass making. So glass trinkets, glass beads, jewelry. The Phoenicians did that. Now, they did not produce copper. So here's some copper ingots. Do you want copper ingots? Yes, everybody wants copper ingots. It's not very far away. You'd have to sail to Cyprus, right around the corner. No big thing, right? Or you could sail to Egypt, or you could walk to Mesopotamia, but they don't grow grain in geography of Phoenicia. It's too mountainous. It's not a flat farmland area, so you'd have to get your barley from someplace else. So kids would become specialists of each object. They'd be confined to a part of the room. Geographically, we'd map out the room. And so if you're in Egypt or Mesopotamia, you've got that. If you're in Greece, you've got pottery, because Greece was real big on pottery, Mycenae, and that's why we dig it up. Oh, but here we go. This is what. So I would reward the kids. You do the homework and we do a little game quiz, and the kids that studied or they knew what to try to get, they would get first dibs, first pick, and get one of these commodities. We got like 30 of them in this bag, 30 different things from the Mediterranean world. And honestly, because purple, like you can make a lot of money with purple if you are a purple merchant, but it's more limited than some of these other things. So you could do well. I mean, purple is good, but not many people can afford it. This is the one. And why is cedar lumber from Phoenicia, the Lebanese cedars, it's on their flag now. Why is cedar such a big deal? Here's a block of, okay, here's some cedar. I saved some. I don't know can you hear this? It's a lighter type of wood. It's not light, but this is a plank used for decking. It's left over from a railing, and it's lighter weight. It smells really good. My whole room here, like I smelled it. I got this out earlier, and it smells. They make cedar closets. So cedar has special properties. And the reason why the Phoenicians are such big traders, because of the purple fabric and all these commodities that are valuable, but they also could build their own ships. It does not rot in water. It's resistant to decay of all types. So if you've got cedar in this trade simulation, you had the only supply so that people could build ships and travel around and sail. So if you're a specialist in copper, nobody can come get you. Nobody can come buy your copper unless they had a ship. And so kids that realized this, they tended to corner the market on cedar. They made alliances. They made treaties with people that could, because I would have a limited number, they could like rent their ships kind of, and you could go sail. So it's really good time. It's a class period. It usually would take 2 or 3 days to get it set up. ClassicalKingdoms.com will have details on this lesson and how you can create the simulation of your homeschool family. Maybe you've got a classroom. I had to scale it to 30 kids. They kept packing more kids in to the class, but it's scalable down to 10 kids. And it's a good time. It teaches Phoenician civilization that's a rising up because of their geography, because of their location. The whole classroom is a map, and you've got to see that's mountainous separation and coastline territory. It's just very unique. So they develop a little differently on top of the trade and the way the routes were so valuable with all these commodities. They also are developing independently of each other. And you'll see that in Greece also. When you have all these mountainous kind of areas, city-states don't mingle so much. It's very difficult. They don't have a nation. They don't have a full country with a king. They are independent city-states. And this actually could become a strength. This could help them. They're flexible. They're decentralized. And when times get tough, they might actually do pretty well against some of their rivals. They don't have a lot of rivals because everybody wants to trade with them. They want to get the cedar. They want to be friends. Now, the Greeks don't call them the cedar merchants. The Greeks call them the purple merchants. Phoenices. Phoenices, the Greek word for purple people or purple merchants. And Phoenician, that's in the Latin word Punic. When we get to that lesson about the Punic Wars, that's coming. And that it all means purple people. And so it's not a romantic story to actually sit on the seashore, squeeze these shellfish, and stink up the place because there's a tiny little drop that you extract after you smash the mucous membranes of these little shellfish. Nevertheless, it's a glorious robe. And Phoenicia does quite well. They are Canaanites, so they are Semitic-speaking people in the same geography as all the other Canaanites, so they are a part of that story. The main city-states are Tyre, for Tyrian purple, Sidon, Byblos. Byblos was the big one with the cedar, and they made deals with Egypt. And even after the Bronze Age collapse, oh no, not that again. The Bronze Age collapse after 1200 BC, everybody is falling apart. Egypt is not buying so many new ships, but Phoenicia, the city-states, actually do fine. They're not so dependent on exactly one. They have this network. They're able to get what they need and still thrive and do well. So these Phoenician city-states are going to grow and lead up to some colonies. So, and they don't have to worry about the sea peoples. Remember, the sea peoples always get blamed for the Bronze Age collapse. But here we are. What do you like the best? Would you have picked the cedar? Would you have picked the purple fabric or other commodities? Put it in the comments, click the like button, and subscribe. And don't miss out on all the complete lessons as we journey on Mediterranean trade. The Phoenicians, did they have a trade empire? People say they have a trade empire. What even is an empire? Because it's supposed to be when one government, one nation controls another nation. That's an empire, and typically it's on land. But the Phoenicians are different because of their isolated geographic conditions up against the coast with the mountains, Lebanon mountains, and a lot of really valuable resources. So why do people say that this is a trade empire? Because their influence. This is the time to get out a map. Is it time to do another map? You would have to get one that zoomed way out across the entire Mediterranean Sea. And if people want to trade with you, that's kind of like being part of an empire, the Phoenician Empire. It's kind of a revolutionary concept. The Greeks traded and had a special word for what's going on here. Thalassocracy. A thalassocracy, a sea-based empire. Unlike land-based empires, Phoenicians were rarely trying to conquer. Think about this for a second. They weren't trying to invade territory. What were they trying to do? They wanted to dominate the trade routes, the sea lanes, the vital arteries of trade, to control the network for their strategic advantage. And placing colonies around is going to help expand their influence and have an unrivaled navy. Colonies. Now, what even is a colony? Because if the Phoenicians decide to take their Canaanite culture, their Canaanite Semitic language, and spin it off and place it somewhere different in a different location, but still be the identity that they once were, that's like a colony, a spin-off. And it will help them dominate and be influential in other places. And one of the challenges, as an empire, they would need to control the pirates, which is like the sea peoples that we keep talking about. But there can't be lawless pirates attacking the trade routes. So their success on the sea requires really good ships, superior ships to any pirates. Pirates aren't going to have good ships. So the Phoenicians are great shipbuilders. And one of the reasons is because of their cedar. The Cedars of Lebanon, incredibly strong, large trees. Cedar is decay resistant. It doesn't rot in water. It's a type of wood that can really last. And they had craftsmen that could build ships with deep curved hulls and interlocking planks that were very durable. And they also had stabilizing keels. This is an innovation, keels. If we see the picture of the keels, and these stabilizing keels can make their ships both durable and versatile against the pirates. The whole point is being able to maneuver and to be successful with some enemy challenges on the sea. Their greatest innovation is the bireme. Bireme. What does a bireme? What's the prefix bi mean? 2. It's a revolutionary warship with 2 rows of oars. What does that mean? If you're a warship and you've got all these rowers, in fact, you found a way to stack them in double sections. You can pack 120 warriors, 120 rowers in this warship. And that gives them a huge combat advantage because now you can turn your ship into a ramming missile. And the bireme was the latest and greatest. We've got, I know one that's better, but it'll have to come later. I will tell you about that later. But the design of the ship, it just gives them a higher fighting platform and allows Marines to rain projectiles down on the lower single-deck ships. They don't have as much energy power with fewer rowers. So that helps. That helps make you want to trade with these people and not fight with them, right? So the Thalassocracy, Greek word for naval supremacy, naval empire, thanks to the bireme of the Phoenicians protecting merchants. So the warships of the Phoenicians are protecting their own merchants and protecting other merchants. Do you see the advantage of this? Why would you want to be a pirate when you could just be a part of these trade networks? And you see the influence that they're building an empire. And the central conflict is best seen in the eyes of others like the famous historian Herodotus, because he recognized this form of unique power and it gave him inspiration. Herodotus comes much later, but he says the Greeks need to level up from what the Phoenicians are doing to make their own empire of the sea. And I can think of several Greek advancements that make this possible. We'll cover in a different lesson. So how do they navigate this massive empire across the whole Mediterranean Sea? The Phoenicians were among the very first to master celestial navigation. What is celestial? The stars. Other sailors hugged coastlines. They learned how to read the stars to stake out just how to stay close to the coastline, but now the Phoenicians could read the stars to go in the open sea, dramatically shortening voyage times, opening up new trade routes. And for centuries, the Greeks had referred to Polaris as the North Star. But the Greeks first used to call it the Phoenician star in honor of the discoverers of the one star. What is unique about the Phoenician star, the Polaris, the North Star? It doesn't move. All right, it moves like a degree. It might be 2 degrees. Let me look that up. But it stays the same, and that's the star that they could use. And their knowledge of this is most valuable and admired, especially later by the Greeks. But for now, in this early time period, Phoenicians can keep their monopoly. They can be strong protecting the routes. They understood the wind, the currents, and their access to the wealth around the Mediterranean Sea, the trade. So their skill, their courage, it led them to go where others had not gone before, beyond maps of what had previously existed. So check out the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, the vast Atlantic Ocean. Do you think they went? Do you think they went that far? It is possible that the Egyptian pharaoh Necho II, around the year 600 BC, had commissioned an exciting voyage to go beyond those places. Herodotus reported that Phoenician fleets successfully went all the way beyond Africa. And could they have gone west? Because people say they might have kept going west. They might have beat everybody, all the other Europeans over there. Nevertheless, we're off topic because Mediterranean trade is so strong and so big because purple fabric and everything else that the Phoenicians are doing to help secure their trade empire. Do you even like the color purple? Because what if you don't? Do you not care about the Phoenicians? That was their number one product because it was so expensive and valuable and lucrative. It gave the Phoenicians a lot of money, but it also gave them attention to just trade anything on these trade routes that they were so good at protecting. The Phoenicians, you could call them the indispensable middlemen of the ancient world. What is a middleman? Well, in business, your retailers are at the bottom. Like they have to buy their products from somebody. And if they don't buy them from the source, they buy it from the middleman. And the Phoenicians are middlemen because they would pick up a load of something and carry it on to a different port. It's a network of trade, and it sprawls all over the Mediterranean Sea. Caravan routes, sea lanes. These are all trade terms that you want to put on your trade map. Are you making a trade map? I hope you are. So tin. How about tin? Phoenicians didn't have tin, but they help connect. Everybody wants tin because of bronze. Even after the Bronze Age collapsed, people still want bronze. It's just that iron is better. So to connect to the tin mines of all the way up in Britain and the silver mines of Spain and the markets of Egypt that want to buy it, or Mesopotamia that are further inland, it's the Phoenicians that are able to help connect all of this. They have mastered a sophisticated strategy of arbitrage. Arbitrage, what is arbitrage? They're buying goods when they are plentiful, knowing that they can sell them somewhere else at a higher price. That's rare. Arbitrage. They know the gap is going to be there. They're going to take advantage of that. And that's what trade does. You take the products to where they are needed. Do you need purple fabric? Well, now they would trade fabric because Egypt would take flax and process that, like the flax that they could grow in the Nile Delta, in the Nile Valley. The flax is a long stem and it's got the seed. It is nutritious with your omegas, omega fatty 3s, but the thin fiber that's in the stalk of the flax, when you smash that out, you can start weaving it. You can start spinning it. You can turn it into fabric, and that fabric is called linen. So linen fabric could be one thing that they would trade. They are the middleman to trading that fabric because they did not grow flax themselves. But if they took some of that linen and dyed it, the murex seashell was uniquely friendly to the waters off the coast of Tyre. Tyrian purple is named because the murex seashell, it's like a snail. And if you smash one of these things, you can just barely get a drop. And if you smash tens of thousands of them, you could get enough dye to do a shirt, to do a tunic. We would call it a tunic, or a robe, a colorful robe. So colored dye was extremely expensive back then. They didn't have synthetic dyes. And skip ahead to the year 301. The Emperor Diocletian fixed the price of Tyrian purple at 150,000 denarii, which is like 3 pounds of solid gold. So at today's price of gold, the pound of Tyrian purple, enough to make, just maybe 2 garments or something like that. We're talking about super fancy sports car prices, maybe a small house. If it gives you some level of understanding, do you spend that much on clothing? Well, if you don't, the Phoenicians still have other products that you would like. And since they're so expensive, only Roman emperors were even permitted to wear a toga of solid purple. So back to the question I asked you, had you seen it in stories, only royalty could afford to wear purple. Tyrian purple is what it would be. And that color purple is only possible in the natural dye coming from the murex. No synthetic dyes back then. Are you a little bit surprised that such a trade network would be so driven by purple fabric and something rare and exciting like that? But it's what people wanted to buy. But really, my favorite is cedar. You know, I just feel like the purple, I don't know what you think, put it in the comments, but the purple fabric that's a natural dye would be so easy to live without. I mean, you'd rather have a house or a sports car. But cedar, because not just ships, but it becomes important materials to build temples. Like the Temple of Solomon, if you just go back to lesson 15, when Solomon built that temple, he was using gigantic planks, beams that were from cedar, from Lebanon, from the Phoenicians. The Bible documents a famous trade agreement between King Hiram I of Tyre and King Solomon in the 10th century BC. And that was the cedar supplied, and there's a document of that. So we see Solomon wanted the very best for the temple. Solomon provided Hiram's kingdom with an enormous annual payment to ensure that he would have these supplies. So wheat and olive oil coming from this region, that's vital foodstuffs for everybody. And so the Phoenicians have a guaranteed supply, wheat and olive oil coming from Canaan, coming from King Solomon's Israel. And it shows you how control over a single vital resource could be leveraged. And don't think that Solomon didn't have a purple robe, because he did. And now what about glass making? The glass making industry, it existed other places, but the Phoenicians transformed it from kind of a niche craft, you know, real specific and odd, into a major industry. We know how valuable glass is now. Their true and undisputed contribution was this technological leap that a technique of glass blowing becomes quick and inexpensive, and it allows for mass production of glass. For the first time in history, glass can be more accessible. So innovations are happening, and that's an economic lesson now, that as people want to be able to trade, they're forced into innovating in good ways. And that was the Phoenician desire to be the very best and to have successful trade. Usually in my class around this time, someone will say a favorite tech product. You know, do you remember when the Apple iPhone first came out? Or do you remember the first time? I do. In 1985, I used a Mac, an Apple Macintosh, and I was blown away. It was just so such simpler, easier, better. I loved it and really became an Apple person. That could be your favorite brand. But that's the type of revolutionary innovation. And you just think, like, in some of your strong brands, what if they didn't exist? You know, try it with one of your favorite. If one of those products didn't exist, does it impact all the others? You know, like purple fabric or cedar wood. Well, what is the special gift that the Phoenicians gave us? If it's not purple fabric, this is the fourth segment. In this segment, let's look at the special gift, the enduring legacy. If it's not purple fabric, if it's not one of these luxury goods, you think about your favorite product or innovation. Phoenician contributions to trade would not be possible without trade records. We already had a lesson number 6 about writing and the importance of trade records. That's why writing was invented. The Phoenicians developed and perfected and spread the best new writing system, a phonetic alphabet. Phonetic. What is phonetic? It's letters that make sounds. It's identifying the letters and putting the sounds and understanding that these letters are going to go with the sounds. But the previous writing systems like hieroglyphics Mesopotamian cuneiform, they were just too complex. And they had to have scribes. You had to hire scribes. It's expensive. They had to memorize all thousands of different characters. So how can you develop a writing system? How do you make an alphabet? The Phoenician system was an innovation, kind of like these other inventions, like make it simple. Make it simple. Make it based on sound, phonetics. And they came down to 22 symbols that could represent consonant sounds, 22 of them. And you can see it on this chart. Now, it's going to look very familiar as you advance it, because what the Phoenicians did to the alphabet was the revolutionary step. This is like 8th century BC, and the Greeks quickly adopted the system, but then they improved it. The Greeks added the innovation, very similar looking letters to the Phoenician symbols, the alphabet, but they added vowels. So vowel sounds. So you can see it's not far before the Latin people get a hold of this thing. That's the alphabet I'm using. What alphabet do you use? Do you use the Latin alphabet? Because that is what English is built on. So thank you to the Phoenicians for the alphabet and the inspiration for the Greek alphabet, and now the Latin alphabet that will spread to all of these Phoenician places. And that includes Phoenician colonies. What is a colony? They had to have colonies. Those are the spin-off settlements. They had to put outposts, all these places. They wanted to secure the routes to get the silver, to get the tin. They wanted the colonies like the big one that we're gonna see many times, the Carthage colony. Carthage was founded in 814 BC by the Tyrian princess Dido. Now there's some legend here, and Dido is going to come up again in a Roman lesson, the first Roman lesson, because the legend says that she cleverly negotiated for this land by cutting a single ox hide into a thin strip that was long enough to encircle the entire hill for her new city. It's now convincing that this is an interesting fact about the people that developed Carthage, and we'll have that story brought up a little bit later about a famous Carthaginian who had elephants and tried to invade Rome. So now, as nasty as the human sacrifice element of those Carthaginian people, that's not what really brings them down. There's going to be a significant conflict, and you'll hear about it in some of our Roman classical kingdoms lessons. But here at Classical Kingdoms, you know that kingdoms rise and fall, and you know the power fades. As other kingdoms rise up, they're going to chip away at the authority and the power of the mighty Carthaginians, Phoenician city-states. So whether it's the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, they all will chip away at this. And by 146 BC, we're not so much going to rely on Phoenician trade routes anymore. The Phoenicians had given us a great gift. We're all going to use their alphabet invention that's been improved by the Latin. Their trade networks will be maintained and improved by future civilizations. So this is an awe-inspiring, appreciated gift that the Phoenicians gave us, trade and alphabet and everything. But the greatest impact is really coming with future civilizations that take over where the Phoenicians leave off. So what will you take from this age of exciting international trade and interconnectedness? Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your history, some classical truth for your journey. Because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.